Welcome to Brain Chat with the Nerdy Neurologist. I'm Dr. Mitzi Joy Williams, and I'm your board-certified neurologist and MS specialist. My mission is to engage, educate, and empower those affected by MS to become an active part of their healthcare team. Here on Brain Chat, we'll be talking all things MS, health and wellness, advocacy, and we'll throw a little bit of music and music therapy in there as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned for the next episode. All right. Happy Monday and welcome to Brain Chat with the Nerdy Neurologist. I'm Dr. Mitzi Joy Williams, and I'm so excited to be here with you all this evening for another episode of Brain Chat. And listen, this episode is going to be amazing. I know I say that every week or every other week, but really, I'm for real this time. So we're going to talk about something very cool called patient-powered research. And we'll get into that a little bit later on in the chat. But first, if anybody knows Dr. Mitzi, they know that Dr. Mitzi is a music lover. In my former life, I was a professional background singer, and I used to do a lot of studio work. So one of my favorite artists has a birthday today, and it's Prince. So today, you can drop in the chat where you're logging in from, but also if you want to drop your favorite Prince song, please feel free to do so. I think my favorite Prince song I have so many, but I think probably Let's Go Crazy might be my favorite one. So, just that intro with the organ, it's just amazing. So, and I got to see Prince twice live before he passed away, unfortunately. But it was quite an experience. I will say that I spent the first whole performance yelling like a teenager who had lost their minds. So needless to say, I'm a huge Prince fan. All right. I said someone said the beautiful ones. And we got folks logging in from North Carolina, from Mansfield, Texas. We got some folks from Albany, Georgia. So drop in the chat where you're logging in from and your favorite Prince song, since it is Prince's birthday. All right. So while you guys are doing that, I am going to read the bios of our amazing guests. All right. So today we have Hollie Schmidt and we have Anita Williams with us, and we're talking about patient-powered research, right? So Hollie is the VP of Scientific Operations at Accelerated Cure Project for Multiple Sclerosis, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. She co-chairs the research committee of I Conquer MS, which is a virtual patient-powered research network for MS that was established to perform and support patient-centered research in multiple sclerosis. In this role, she works to promote engagement throughout the research process and to develop research collaborations on topics of interest to people with MS, which is extremely important. She founded and leads the MS Minority Research Engagement Partnership Network, of which I am a member. And she also works with ACP's Accelerated Cure Project's MS Repository, which provides highly characterized biospecimens from people with demyelinating diseases and controls to scientists around the world. Before, in her former life, before she joined ACP, she co-founded a consulting firm and 2 software companies, and she has a Bachelor of Science in Materials and Science and Engineering from MIT, as well as a Master's in Management. So we're going to have Hollie come up in just a few seconds, but before she comes up, I am going to introduce Anita. Anita Williams was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2015 and began her advocacy work soon after that, and she does a great deal of advocacy work. She's a co-chair of the engagement committee for I Conquer MS, and she's involved in outreach and engagement efforts, including participating in the MS Minority Research Engagement Partnership Network. And she serves as a co-chair of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, the subcommittee there. She's vice chair of the board of directors for STRIDE CHC, which is a FQHC in Colorado. And she is the principal strategist and owner of the Beta Pond. And she holds a BA from Brandeis, I don't know if I said that right, University, and an MS in management and in project management from Colorado State University. And also, Anita was an amazing patient advocate that helped form some of the criteria for the CHIME study, which was the first minority-focused MS clinical trial. So that's not on her CV, but that is a little thing that I know about her, that she had some amazing input. So just going through the chat here, I see that we got folks logging in from Oregon. That's the first one. H-Town, New Jersey. and Florida, Houston, New Orleans, and Indianapolis. And some of the favorite Prince songs that I see here are Slow Love, Let's Go Crazy. And then Purple Rain, of course, that is a classic. So, all right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. Let's pull our guests up to the stage and let's start chatting. Hi, Hollie. Hi, Anita.
Hi, Mitzi.
Hi. All right. Welcome to Brain Chat. I'm so excited to have you guys with me tonight and talk about patient powered research, which I think many people don't know about or haven't heard of. And so I'm really excited to talk about this topic because I think it's extremely important. So, why don't each of you just introduce yourselves? I've said a little bit about you from your bio, but just introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about how you got into the MS advocacy space and tell us a little bit about your stories.
Anita, do you want to go first?
Sure. I got into MS advocacy when I was diagnosed with MS. Mine was basically from a nosebleed to MS in 2.5 hours. Wow. And the very first thing I did in the emergency room was look up multiple sclerosis, what it was, and look at research. And so that has been my complete passion, has been the research aspect of multiple sclerosis, and particularly as it applies to African Americans and getting more information. And my favorite Prince song, I'm cheating doing two, DMSR and Computer Blue.
Oh yeah, those are good ones. Those are good ones. Okay, all right, Hollie.
Hi, I got into MS advocacy because the founder of my organization, Accelerated Cure Project, is or has been since I was in college, a very good friend of mine. We actually lived in the same dorm together at MIT and hung out together and started a business in high tech together. And then he was diagnosed in 2000 with MS, and he founded Accelerated Cure Project. And I said, that's too bad that you have this, but, good for you for, doing something about it, and let me know how I can help. And, it's 20 years later, wow, and I'm still here. And it's because there's, still plenty to do. And working with people with MS and neurologists and other professionals is amazing. And there's many, puzzles to solve and challenges to overcome. So, and my favorite Prince song is Let's Go Crazy. But since you already took that, I'm going to also say I Would Die for You. That's a good one.
Oh, good one.
That is an amazing one. Oh my God, that's totally one of my favorites. Okay, so before we talk about patient-powered research, you said something very interesting, Anita. You said that the first thing you did when you got diagnosed was that you started looking up research. So tell us a little bit about why that stood out to you or what made you passionate about being involved in research.
Okay. At the time that I was diagnosed, it really was out of the blue. And so the emergency room physician gave me, a few minutes. And so the first thing I did, obviously, go to Google. But the research aspect was important to me because I wanted to understand more about the disease. I wanted to understand more about how it was going to affect me, what I could or couldn't look forward to, what type of treatment was out there. And so wanting to know answers to those questions is really what led me into the research aspect of multiple sclerosis.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. And I know that, for people who do watch the show, I talk a lot about research and the importance of being involved in research. But I think that patient-powered research is something that's extremely important because as a scientist and as a member of the scientific community, sometimes we get into this thought that we know everything and we know all the right questions to ask, right? And as we're looking at things like diversity and equity, I think that it's important for us to diversify the groups of people who are helping drive the questions that we ask. Because for me, I might be like, yeah, let's do that project about B cells and let's look at the CSF, but that's not going to tell a person with MS what they should eat on a regular basis, right? Or possibly how much vitamin D supplementation they need. So let's talk a little bit about what patient-powered research means and how the paradigm is now changing so that people who live with these conditions are helping to formulate or are formulating the questions that we ask that will help them on a daily basis. Whoever wants to start.
I can start. So there has been a shift. You're right. When I started getting involved in MS and the organization was very new, a lot of medical professionals and research professionals did have that kind of stay in your lane attitude. Like patients can help us raise money or help us raise awareness, but, aren't really that welcome in terms of influencing research or having ideas for research studies or things that need to be studied. So I think there's been a lot of change for the better, especially in MS. People with MS, they get diagnosed at a relatively early age. They know they're going to have this disease for some time. And they usually invest a lot of time, like Anita, into understanding, well, how might I have gotten this? What is available to treat it? How are my symptoms likely to evolve? What can I do about that? How can I help manage this disease? And so people with MS usually build up quite a impressive body of knowledge about the disease and look into the research and talk with other people and attend events and things like that. So there's really no reason at all not to tap into that knowledge base, and also to understand what the preferences are of people with MS when it comes to research, because who better to help guide research than the people who would benefit from the results of the research ultimately. So that's been our philosophy at Accelerated Cure Project from the beginning, because we were founded by a person with MS, and we've involved people with MS in the board of directors and on staff and in our volunteer base, and now especially with I Conquer MS in the leadership of that initiative in the governing board and the different committees. More than half of the people on each of those bodies are people with MS. It's in our regulations. So so we completely believe in the importance of patient-powered research and have followed that through in the activities of I Conquer MS.
Absolutely. And I think so much of what you said is so key and right on point. But it really has taken some shifting, even for myself, who's a pretty open minded person. It's like, okay, well, once you adopt it or once you think about it, it makes sense, right? So, how can we really formulate the questions without asking the people who are living with the condition, or how much better can we formulate studies when we have the input of those who will have to participate in the studies? So it really is very intuitive and makes so much sense. But I would agree with you. It certainly has been kind of difficult for the scientific community. I think many of us are coming around, meaning myself and my colleagues, but there's still a lot of work to do to help people understand that we need everyone as a part of the process in order to be successful and in order to find information and find things that are useful to the people who are living with the disease. So what does patient-powered research mean to you, Anita?
It means centering the research and the questions and everything that's driving it around the patient. And it's interesting, you mentioned before the idea that as a researcher, you might want to study, this really specific thing about, B cells and all this other stuff, which is not other stuff in a bad way. But when you do that, what it does is the researcher is the person who decides what's important to look at, what's important to find answers for. And that may not be what we as people living with MS may want to study. One of the major things that I've found over the years is that there's a lot of quality of life issues, and that means relationships with friends, families, fatigue, activity, being a vibrant part of our community. And so the things that would lead to those positive outcomes, those are the things that we're interested in. That's the research that we're interested in. And so by being people powered, it means that instead of you or your colleagues as researchers deciding what is important for us, we get to be a part of that discussion and talk about what is it that we need to know? What is it we want to learn? And it's definitely not a replacement for and shoving everybody to the side. It's bringing people together and working together, because collaboration, I think, is key, because you're bringing together both sides. But with that patient powered, it means behind that sort of locomotive is the patient pushing the agenda, driving the agenda, and being the ones that are in the center of it, rather than being reactive after the fact or not even consulted at all.
Absolutely. And I mean, the bottom line is I think that both types of research can coexist, right? I think the point is that, we do at some point need to look at B cells so we can hopefully figure out what caused MS and hopefully find a cure for MS. But at the same time, we also want to do research. We can't let all of our research be focused on everything driven by researchers. We have to have some research or, a good bit of our research that is powered by the patients. So tell me about some of the projects that may have come out of, patient powered research versus what we may see kind of in traditional research forums. So I have done some work with Accelerated Cure Project and also with I Conquer MS. And it's been very cool because as a healthcare provider, I will sit in the room and I do a lot of listening. So when I come to, meetings or when we talk about different types of research, I am not necessarily the expert in the room, so to speak, because I can't say what people with MS want. So it's a very humbling experience, but it also has taught me a lot about listening. So tell me about how the process works. So how do you do patient powered research? Do you just get a bunch of patients together and say, this is the project, or how does it work?
There's different ways. Sometimes, or a lot of times, a researcher will come to us and they know that we have, like, say, over 7,000 people in our network. And, that's a really attractive group of people to be available to participate in a research study. And they'll say, I would like to look at this topic. And that's great. We definitely want to hear from researchers about what they like to study, what they have funding to study, how they would go about it. But then we bring people into that conversation as well, bring the research committee into the conversation. Again, that more than half the members of that committee are people with MS, to take a close look at what's happening. We go out to our community, we'll do a survey of our entire community where we'll say, here's, say 3 or 4 paragraph description of what this researcher wants to do. Is this something that you think is important? Would you participate in the study if it were available? And then what feedback do you have for the researcher? And then all of that feedback gets packaged up and delivered to the researcher so that they can, take advantage of it and adapt their study, accordingly. And then the research committee also takes all of that feedback into account when they decide whether or not to approve the study for release within I Conquer MS. So that's one way, but there's also projects that we do that come from the community directly. We recently launched a program called Our Questions Have Power. Mm-hmm. And ever since we began, we've had a spot on our website where people can send in their research question. And these questions really run the gamut from the lifestyle factors that you mentioned, say diet or exercise or things like that. But also, people with MS, as I said, they are educated about MS in all of its aspects. And there's also some more lab-oriented questions that are raised, and just all kinds of things, economic questions or what have you. So we've been doing that since the beginning, but recently we decided to formalize that process and develop an actual program called Our Questions Have Power, where we ask the community to submit their questions. They can look at the questions that were submitted by other people. They can comment on those questions, and they can vote. And so we know which of the questions are most important. And we started this with a focus on COVID-19. Mm-hmm. We launched several months ago, and we knew there was going to be a lot of questions out there. A lot of things have not been answered for people with MS in COVID-19. So we wanted to know what those were. And based on the input, we actually have launched a study on COVID-19 vaccination in people with MS. It's called Cover MS. And it's asking people who have been vaccinated or who plan to be to report which vaccine they got, how did it go, what were their side effects if they had any, and then over time if they notice any changes in their MS or if they get diagnosed with COVID-19, even though they've gotten the vaccination, we'd like to know that as well so we can pull all that data together and contribute to the guidance that different groups like the MS Society are providing to people as they sort of navigate this world of COVID-19 and also decisions about vaccinations. So that's a specific example of how we're taking questions directly from the community and helping to develop them into research studies. And we have many other COVID-19 and MS questions, and we'll be taking a look at those to see what other studies we can help to bring to life as well. And then eventually we'll shift off of COVID-19 and get onto some other topics as well. But this seemed like it was such an important point in time to to address this topic, that's where we needed to start.
Yeah, and I think again, it's so important to kind of have your ear to the ground or feel the pulse of what's going on, and again focus on things that are important to people who are living with MS. There are a lot of questions we all have about COVID-19 that we don't know the answers to, but I love this concept of kind of banding together with the community and looking at a scientific project and saying, is this important to us? Do we want to be involved in this or not? And what is the feedback that we as a community have for those who are conducting the research and trying to find these answers. So that's a really, really cool concept. So tell me your thoughts about, projects you've been involved in, Anita, with patient-powered research as well.
The studies and clinical trials I've been in, I've been really, really pleased with the interaction. There's always this level of respect between the researcher and myself, because I've had the opportunity to actually talk to one of the researchers that was in a program I did. And what I will say is that knowing that the research being done is something that is important to people with MS, and having that drive, what's going on, makes a big difference. One of the things I want to kind of talk was the cover MS. The ability to react so quickly as far as with COVID, that I think is another great part of that patient-centered research, because while there definitely are people that are researching COVID-19 and the interactions, one of the things that the drug companies were able to do was to take the time to find out how people who are immunosuppressed react. And that includes that wide swath of the MS community. Right. And so with that patient-powered research, being able to, I guess you say, like, kind of jump on topics that are important to us now, I think that also makes it more relevant to our lives, because again, researchers are looking at things that are extremely important. But the fact that we're able to really be a part of that, but also to be at the forefront to say, COVID-19, this is important, this is what we want to know, and to have that right there, that immediacy of being involved with the projects and with the researchers. And that's the thing that for me, that I've enjoyed the most. One, the personal interaction with everyone and the information, but then also the ability, again, to address concerns that we have right now and to do that effectively.
Yeah, and I love this idea of kind of that quick turnaround. So I think that before COVID, everything took a really long time to get done. And so once it started, it was like, oh my God, you can come up with a registry in like a couple of months instead of a couple of years. And yes, all these people can collaborate and do all these things across the world. There was at one point at the beginning when nobody knew what to do, when some of my colleagues, we would just hop on a Zoom call. And people from Australia, people from the UK, people from France, everybody would just hop on and, share their best practices. Like, what are you doing? This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. And so I think one of the great things that has come out of it is that we really have this global, collaboration and sharing of information so that we can all kind of move, the understanding forward about what we understand about COVID-19 with, in general and concerning MS. And also we've seen that we can get things done a lot more quickly than we used to. Right. And I see Stuart, our good friend Stuart, is in the comments, and he was talking about, getting the work done starting a week from the shutdown. So, there's a lot of work that can be done fairly quickly when we all band together and put our minds to it. So I like, to talk a little bit about what other projects you have going. And, of course, I want to touch on the MS Minority Research Partnership Engagement Network and kind of what spurred the idea for that, since I've been involved in that. And Hollie approached me. I'd done some work with Hollie, and she approached me and said, hey, do you want to do this project? And I was like, of course. Yeah, but talk a little bit about what got that started, and also talk a little bit about your role on the Diversity and Inclusion Subcommittee, Anita. So Hollie would talk about the project in general, and then you talk about your role.
Okay. Yeah, well, the motivation for starting that network was I Conquer MS and our enrollment. And the initial funding for I Conquer MS came from this amazing, huge nonprofit called the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute. And
PCORI for short.
PCORI, yeah. And they've been around for several years. They actually got their funding from the Affordable Care Act. A little tiny bit of everybody's healthcare premiums goes into the fund for patient-centered research, and PCORI administers that and is doing amazing work on funding research aimed at addressing needs of people living with diseases or with health conditions. So they funded us along with other networks for other diseases or other groups. And one of the reports that we needed to generate on a regular basis had to do with demographics. And so we were analyzing the data in I Conquer MS, age and sex and things like that. When we got to race and ethnicity, we saw that, we were not very diverse. And there is no overall MS registry, in the United States or worldwide. We don't really know what the actual percentage is of whites or blacks or Hispanics or Asian Americans or anything like that. But when we looked at our own data, we were like, whatever the number is, this is not it. We are not there.
Right.
So, and we're a very small organization, Accelerated Cure Project. We work with other companies and other groups and lots of individuals, but we ourselves are very small and we don't have all the answers for sure. So, and we knew people like Mitzi, and we had people in our network like Anita. And we knew that if we reached out to others, that perhaps, we had more of the answers collectively. And whatever we don't know collectively, we had a better shot at learning if we worked together. So, yeah, I reached out to you two and to people from, other neurologists and scientists and people with MS, people from industry, people from other advocacy groups, and formed this network. And we've been working at it since 2016, I think.
Yeah, it has been. It's been almost 5 years.
Yeah, and I'd say we were pretty pioneering, because back then this topic was not as well discussed,
it
as
was not.
Today. And so we got started. We did a survey of people with MS, which has now been published. So it's out there on the internet. It's open access. And it's where we looked at, asked people to report on their attitudes and their experiences with research. And we analyzed that by racial and ethnic group and learned quite a lot. And we've developed some toolkits, and we've brought more people into the network. So we probably have like 40 or 50 people now. It's quite amazing how it's grown. And now more and more things are starting, not even within the network, but like the CHIME study that you mentioned, it's exciting to see that happening. And, groups like the MS Society and the MSAA are all doing things for different minority communities.
Yeah.
And a lot of researchers are now aware of the need for diversity and to have research that benefits everybody, not just one group of people. So, the message is getting out there, and we continue to work at it. We're still challenged when it comes to, our enrollment in I Conquer MS. So the job is not yet done, but, I think we have so much of a better shot at getting there with the support of a broad network and people with, loads of experience and good ideas, and also the willingness to help, because that's important too.
Yeah. And I think there are a lot of people that are willing to help. And the thing I really loved about it is that it really was people from all walks of life. So we had people with MS, we had the advocacy folks, we had researchers, we had scientists, we had some, folks who were still in their neurology training. So it was really kind of this amazing, I won't say hodgepodge, conglomeration. That's a much more fancier word. But it's just this amazing group of folks. And we all were kind of learning from each other and saying, hey, there's a problem. We know we need to find some ways to fix it. Let's see how we can band our resources and our knowledge together to try to come up with solutions for this problem. And it was a very, very amazing experience to behold. And I look forward to the work that's coming out, and some other projects that are in the works as well. All right. What are your thoughts, Anita?
Okay, I'm excited. In terms of, working on the project, with everyone was really a gift. And it really was this incredible meshing of people with different viewpoints, different life experiences as well, that was all brought to the table. And as a patient, I go back to the word respect. As a patient, I felt that my voice was listened to and respected and taken into account. And that is something that for people with MS, our voices aren't often listened to. Forget about researchers, even with our own primary care physicians or other people, sometimes our voices get drowned out. So what I loved with working with the network was that our voices were heard. Our voices were listened to, and things were acted upon based on what we had said. But even more, the thing that I loved the most was the outcome of the work that we did. And one of my favorite things to say is the reason that I did the research projects is because people asked. And that's what I think you found out from the work that we did, and I think hopefully the toolkits get at, is it's that communication aspect. If we want to get more people of color into research, then we need to reach out and actively ask them to participate in research. It's not going to be a situation where people are going to really kind of stumble into it the way that I did, but that also means there was an openness to doing it. And once people are informed of what you're doing and what you want, then we found in the end that the numbers were so close in terms of whether African American, Hispanic, Latinos, our numbers were the same as white individuals when it came to willingness to participate in research. So I think that's an important part that actually came out of it. And I think that will also bring more people into research, because you're asking them to participate on the patient end. And some of those people, like myself, turn into advocates on that end.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's so amazing. Like I am so in awe of Anita. Anita will step into that room and be like, hey, this is what it is. This is what I believe, or this is what I think will work, or this is what I think may not work. And so having that aspect and that voice is just absolutely amazing and essential. And so now that I've participated in a project where we've had it, it's like, oh my God, how could I've got to have it, But
Thank you. That was really nice.
Yeah, but I love what you said about making sure that we ask, right? Not assuming, right? For anyone, not assuming that people don't want to participate, but making sure that we ask. And then again, recognizing that research is not just clinical trials. Like that's a very important part of research, but there are lots of ways to contribute to the body of knowledge aside from participating in trials that involve procedures or medications. There are networks where you can participate, like I Conquer MS, that ask questions, about what you want to know and about what you want to hear. And I don't know, are you aware of any other networks for other conditions that are similar to I Conquer MS, Hollie? I don't know of any off the top of my head.
There are, yeah. PCORI funded, I forget, I think it's around 20 or so initially, something like that. But yeah, for different conditions like inflammatory bowel disease or arthritis or things like that. So there are other ones out there, and we have good conversations with them because we are trying to accomplish similar things in similar ways.
Yeah, which is very cool. All right, so we're going to pause for the cause here. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I see, some familiar names there in the chat, but if anybody has any questions about patient-powered research, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Let me see if I see any questions there.
I've got a question for you, Mitzi, if you don't get one in the chat.
You got a question for me? Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. Okay, so we do have one question. All right. And the question is, how can I get involved? Amazing question. Yay! All right. So how can I get involved? Take it away, ladies.
I'm plugging I Conquer MS. iconquerms.org. We want you. We will pull you in. Please come join us. But yeah, I conquer MS. Honestly, I conquer MS is a great way to get involved in this patient powered portion. We have we have different subcommittees you can be involved in. We would be so happy to have you join us. So it's iconquerms.org. Please come visit. Get in contact with us. I think that there'll probably be some contact information for Hollie or I afterwards. But yes, I would say number one, definitely with the research and people powered, just come here. We want you for sure. So that's how you, and then from there, we can, I think I hopefully said it enough. iconquerms.org.
Okay. Awesome. And so, it is, all about, and I'm very much about patient empowerment. So, when I think about patient powered research, I think about empowerment, right? Learning about your condition, learning how you can get involved, learning what are the questions that you want the answers to, and helping kind of push the research agenda and make sure that we're answering the things that people need to be successful and to live their best lives with MS, which is extremely important. All right. So Hollie, what's your question for me?
Okay. So, as Anita said, in our survey, we found out that there was a really strong interest in participating in research across all groups and, an interest in all kinds of studies as well. So, that's maybe not the barrier that we thought it would be, but a barrier might be, like Anita said, is that people aren't being asked. And another thing that we found when we surveyed people is like, who do you trust? Who do you trust when it comes to information about research studies? And one of the top choices on that was doctors and nurses, healthcare providers. But when we asked, well, who would you go to? Where would you go for information about research? That was a lower choice, actually. People were more likely to go on the web or to advocacy groups or, other things. So there's like a disconnect there. People would trust information from their healthcare providers, but they're not necessarily expecting to find out about those opportunities there. And that might be because their doctors and nurses and healthcare providers aren't doing research themselves and, don't have that to bring up. But, if we could somehow get healthcare providers more into the mold of, talking with their patients about research opportunities, and especially for people of color, just think of what that could do to help diversify MS research. So my question to you, Mitzi, is do you agree with that? And what do you think we should be doing to help get that conversation going? Because I know there's a lot of constraints when it comes to clinic interactions, and time is one of them. And, there's all kinds of problems with that. But, do you have any ideas?
Yeah. So the number one, I do agree, right, that we need to do more asking. And, in my talking with my colleagues, I think there are a variety of reasons. I think some of it is that people have this perception that people don't want to do research, so they don't ask, which is not a good reason to ask. And I think the other thing, which, is a good and bad thing, but as people have become more aware of some of the research that suggests that MS may be worse in certain populations, particularly minority populations, some people are concerned, well, gosh, if I put my patient in this study, they might get on a medication I don't want them on, that I think may not work as well. So let me not put them in the study because I want to make sure that they're getting the thing that I want them to get because their MS may be more aggressive. And so I think that, there are some barriers, but it still, does not excuse the fact that we do need to ask people more. I think the other thing that is key is that people don't know where to find out about research, right? So much of MS is still cared for by general neurologists. There are amazing general neurologists that are caring for people with MS. But the majority of folks don't necessarily see people who specialize in MS like myself or go to centers where they're doing all the clinical research. So if your neurologist is not doing research, where are you going to find out about research that's going on in your area? So I would love to see some resources. And I know you know of some, Hollie, that we can discuss. But I would love to see a resource where people could, just say, hey, I got MS. I live in Arkansas. What studies are going on near me related to MS, so that they could basically kind of type in almost like a Google function, and search for studies in their area. And so then they would know kind of what's going on, or if there's a way, I know that certainly, ACP has some things listed. I know the MS Society has some things listed, but something very, very easy that people could just type and search and find out what research is going on, or nationally what types of registries they can be involved in. I think that will help as well in terms of raising awareness, so people know what to ask and where to ask for.
Yeah, and maybe some support for people with MS if they're like, if it is a clinical trial, like you said, other things they can maybe do on their own, but a clinical trial, they probably want to talk over with their neurologist.
Exactly.
So how do you do that? How do you raise that with your neurologist? That might be intimidating, or you might wonder, like, how am I going to squeeze this into an appointment when I have all my symptoms to discuss and things like that too. So maybe some guidance about, practically how to have that conversation would be helpful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Stuart put in the chat, what is the antidote? And I'm assuming he means, what is the antidote to this problem or to this issue?
I think Antidote also is the name of a company that does this kind of.
Antidote is the name of a company.
Yeah.
See how much Dr. Williams knows. I was like, the antidote, like poison and chemicals, antidote. Okay, go ahead. Tell us about
I think it's just one of those things where you can put in, like, I have MS and I'm this old and I live in this place, and so it'll help.
So antidote.me. Okay. Are there any other resources that people can look at?
There are. Can I send you a list? And
absolutely
put that into because off the top of my head, and I don't know all the URLs, but I could send those to you, and you can
awesome sauce. And I can post them on my page. If anybody knows any other resources where people can find out about research, put them in the chat. Are there any other questions that people have?
I was going to pop in the FDA. If you go to fda.gov, they also have the ability for you to take a look at all the types of research that's going on. So that's another starting point, and that covers diseases out, everything, besides MS. But that one tends to have a really, really large database of information, so you can check at the fda.gov.
Okay. Awesome sauce. So all great resources. So this has been a really amazing conversation about a topic that I think needs much more attention. And I think, again, when we talk about diversity and inclusion, we need to include people who have the condition in our research process. And so, I really appreciate the amazing work that you guys are doing, and want to know if you have any closing thoughts before we end the show today.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time to invite us and to really talk about this topic. It's so incredibly important. So thank you for shedding a light and highlighting it. I'm super excited to have been here.
Awesome sauce. Anything, Hollie?
Same for me. And please check out iConquerMS, iconquerms.org, and join if people are interested. We have a lot to offer, including the COVID-19 vaccine study and more to come. So please check it out.
Awesome sauce. And that is all we have for Brain Chat today. Thank you for all of those who tuned in for this informative discussion about patient-powered research. And we will see you again in 2 weeks for the next Brain Chat. Have an amazing week, everyone.